So thank you again for joining us tonight. We are delighted to host Nils Ribi. He is a local photographer with a national audience. Nils will share outstanding images taken in the Wood River Valley and beyond, using them to illustrate how anyone can learn how to compose an intimate image that reveals an object's essence. Nils is a multifaceted fellow. He's been an entrepreneur, a business executive, and he claims he is a recovering from elected office. He's been a passionate amateur photographer since childhood and turned professional quite by accident. A love for travel and the out of doors has allowed him to photograph everything from cityscapes to wilderness landscapes. His photos have been published in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, Travel and Leisure, Forbes magazine, Outside magazine, DuPont Registry, and numerous regional publications. In addition, he has photographed for the Associated Press with worldwide distribution. Nils also uses his passion for photography as an opportunity to help local nonprofits and governmental organizations with their photography requirements. So please join me in welcoming Nils Ribi.
Thank you so much, Nils. Thank you. Thank you, Kristen. That was very kind of you. Thank you all for coming. This is great. I really appreciate this opportunity. I've talked to a few groups about photography, and it's always fun to kind of share what you learn and how you do things. And since I'm not a true professional photographer by trade, I'm just accidental. It's fun to share the kinds of things that I do and how I go about it. It's a lot of fun. I love photography. It's kept my mind going in all kinds of directions. I'm not a specialist in any one particular area. I'm, I guess, what you would call a generalist when it comes to photography. I love to shoot all kinds of things, and you'll see some examples of all of that here this evening. So let's begin. I'm going to try to make sure I hit the right button here. Yep. Welcome. This is a picture I took this winter. I took this in January. This is at the Reinheimer Ranch. That's the fence posts just before they got buried with all the snow. And part of the thing that's neat about photography is, and a lot of you gals out there are photographers. You know this. I don't have to tell you. You just see things. And when you see things, you just want to grab them and get them. And whether it's just standing straight or getting down low or getting up high, whatever it is, grab that picture. I just happened to stand on the roof of the car to get this one because the snow had already started piling up. I couldn't do it on my tiptoes. So I got up on the roof of the car and got this picture looking right down the fence line towards the barn off of that little street that's kind of behind the gas station there. You know, those are the kinds of things that you do and you see them. But I wanted to talk about one thing about photography. The tan numbers are the amount of photography that was taken in 2010. Digital cameras took 20% of all the photographs in 2010, and phone cameras, I generally say iPhones because that's what I have, but all phone cameras took 40%. The other 40% of photography that was taken in 2010 were things like electron micrograms, photographs that were taken by satellites, and so on and so forth. There were a lot of those. By the time we move on to 2022, which was last year, digital cameras only took 7% of all photos, and phone cameras took 92.5% of all photographs. So what it says is Everybody out there has an opportunity, pretty much, to take photos. And they're doing it. Billions of photos. Billions of photos. So there's and the photos that you can take now with these are just absolutely incredible. I'll show you a few. I take some. I take a lot, but I don't share many. Most are just for fun. But it is just absolutely amazing what can be done with your phone. I've always loved this quote by Ansel Adams. There are no rules for good photographs. There are only good photographs. And I think that's really the case. You know, you hear about rule of thirds, you hear about this kind of rule and that kind of rule, but in reality, you see something, and if it's good, if it feels good to you, it's a good photograph. I took this picture down at the Timmerman rest stop a few years ago. I saw it, and I thought, this is going to be good in black and white. And so on my camera, I can change the thing to black and white from color. And I looked at it, and I said, yep, I took the picture in black and white. And that's kind of what I just agree with what Adam said. You know, to me, that was a good photograph. To someone else, maybe it's not. But I like it. And so for me, that's a good photograph. And for you, whatever you take, that's a good photograph. And that's all that matters. That's the most important thing. And if you love it, then it's the best thing in the world. But I have 3 rules. And this pays off. Always have a camera with you. Always. I always have a camera with me, and you know, I'm going to take a picture of you guys. Yep. 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 It has paid off for me so many times to have my camera with me. I'm seeing something, I'm driving down the road, I'm going somewhere, I'm sitting somewhere. There's a photo. Oh my God. Get it. And the second thing is take that photo when you see it. And I think most of you know that. It's like, you know, okay, I'm driving somewhere. Oh man, that's cool. Look at that. I'm going to be like that. Stop. Take the photo. Pull off on the side of the road. You know, you can't get all the way off. I know exactly where the flasher button is on my car for the flashers lights on the car. And I stop and get the picture. Patty will laugh. Sometimes I forget to put it in park. If she's with me. That's happened a few times, hasn't it, honey? Yeah, she's nodding her head. And there are no other rules. That's the way I look at it. You can go out and plan to make a photo of something like, okay, I think that the snow is going to be really nice because the light is getting pretty good. But it might not work out the way you think it will. You know, that happens. But what I've found is sometimes I just turn around and look the other way. And it's like, oh my God, look at that. I call it my 180 shot. And half the time, that 180 shot is better than what I was trying to get in the first place. And that's part of getting out there and looking around is I don't get into a single track mind. I try to look around. But it is absolutely amazing what you can find when you look around. The other thing I want to talk about is, and I want to just go back to the iPhone for a minute. I was asked by Forbes, a writer for Forbes magazine, to do a photo shoot for him when he was doing the supercar fast runs on Phantom Hill a number of years back. This was in 2016. This guy excuse me, this writer had driven Lamborghinis and Bugattis and Ferraris and all foreign cars, all over 200 miles an hour on roads, mostly on the Autobahn. But he'd never driven an American-made car over 200 miles an hour. So he came here and he said, I'm going to take a Corvette and try to get it over 200 miles an hour, and I'm going to write about it. So I did the photography for that, and we finished the shoot, and he looked at the back of my camera and said, yep, everything looks pretty good. Yep, we can use these. Yep, we're good. I said, okay, we're done. Packed up my camera, put it away, put it in the car. We went to a little party afterwards at the Sun Valley Auto Club, and Jim picks up this sign that says no speed limit. Nils, look at this. Look at, well, we got to get a picture of that. And I go, oh, crap. Reached in my back pocket, pulled out my iPhone 6 at the time. Said, Jim, took a picture. Guess what the lead photo was in the Forbes magazine article? The iPhone 6. Always have a camera with you. It was just amazing, and that was the lead photo in that. It just happens sometimes. This photo I got last fall driving to Boise. I made quite a few trips over to Boise and Twin Falls last fall. And this is the kids' pond just outside of Fairfield. I stop there every once in a while. There's always something to see there. It's kind of a neat place. It's just a mile or two before Fairfield, off on the right. It's about a quarter of a mile off the highway. And jumped out of the car and I saw this and I'm going, oh my God. Took a picture. You'd think that was with a big camera, a nice camera. It's with my iPhone. It is amazing what you can get with a camera like that. It surprised me too, but I got it. So, where's the gentleman here who shoots with iPhones? There he is. You get those kind of pictures too, don't you? Yeah, it is amazing. It's really amazing what you can do. And you can see why 92.75% of the photos being taken today are coming from iPhones. So you saw this picture on my lead-in slide. I shot this 2.5 weeks ago in Arches National Park. This is 4 photos that were shot and put into a panorama. I stitched them together as a panorama. It's the Milky Way from north to south, and something that I wanted to do, and I was at around 3 o'clock in the morning. It had risen, and it was something I really was excited about. But some of the times when you're focused on just getting that, other things happen. And this happened during the period of time when the Lyrid meteors were peaking. And as I was shooting towards the north end, the first shot would come up and boom, there would be a Lyrid meteor would show up. And I ended up getting maybe a dozen, 15 meteor shots. This is a fireball from the Lyrid meteor at the north end of that. So it's kind of fun to be able to get things that are unexpected. And that's one of the other beauties of photography. If you're not in a hurry and you're willing to say, oops, I had a mistake. What's that? Oh, no, that's not a plane. That's not a satellite. That's a meteor. That's cool. And one of the things that kind of can help you if you're out shooting something, most of you know this, but if you're doing night photography, you know when certain meteor showers are going to happen, or you know when the moon's going to rise, or the other things are going to happen, and you can time it just right. That's when you know that you need to be out at 3 o'clock in the morning to get something. But if you love photography, it doesn't matter what time it is. And it's fun to actually be out there and do those kinds of things. I'll kind of get away from all this Milky Way stuff after this next shot. This was a trip to Craters of the Moon a few years back. It was with some friends, and we were shooting the Milky Way out near the bread loaves. Those of you who've been climbing out there know where that is. It's kind of at the far end of the up high at Craters. Did I say Craters of the Moon? I didn't mean that. Jeez. It's City of Rocks. Excuse me. My mouth is getting dry. I'm also getting my brain to recover from some other things. And just shout out when I screw up like that. Patty, shout out, you know. I'm in stupid mode right now. Anyway, City of Rocks. And this is bread loaves. And it was, you know, the Milky Way was really nice. But we really wanted to get a picture of these rocks in it. But it was just too dark. And all of a sudden I heard this truck coming up the road from below, off on the right. And I heard it. It's like, and I saw the light. And I go, oh my God, this might just work. So I immediately started taking pictures and pictures and pictures and pictures. And sure enough, he comes up, his lights hit the rock, and he shines, and it goes right through, and he gets the whole thing. There's no way you could have ever lit those up like that with a flashlight or a torch or something else. It would have never happened. That was just pure luck. And that's what happens with photography. And that's one of the reasons I love it, because you get luckier than heck once in a while. Anyway, that's part of being out. This is a picture I took a long time ago. It was raining. It was in the fall. Walking along. Saw this out of the corner of my eye. And go, oh, that is too cool. Stop. Got the camera out. Tried not to get it too wet. Took the picture. It's Patty's favorite picture. Loved it. You know, sometimes you just have to get wet. Do things, and they work. Those are the things you have to do. The other thing I love to do is take pictures of clouds. And we get some of the wildest clouds around here, just like we had about an hour ago. You know, they're always out there. And especially around here, they come out just amazing in black and white. And I've been experimenting lately with infrared. And infrared picks up all kinds of things. There's a camera that shoots just in infrared. And then it converts to black and white real nice. And you find all kinds of things in these clouds. And the beauty of it is it allows you to photograph in midday, when most of the time, you know, midday is not the best time to photograph because the light is usually pretty intense. But I tend to say, heck with that. That's one of those rules, you know, that Ansel Adams said, yeah, there are no rules. I don't mind shooting in midday. It's worth trying. Getting up early. If you know that red sky at night, sailor's delight, red sky in the morning type of thing, you can kind of guess when you might be able to get a good sunrise or a good sunset. I don't know, some of you guys know this. You get this feeling that it's going to come along. There's nothing wrong with waking up just a little bit early and peeking out the window or thinking about it and having the camera ready and being ready to run out and grab it. Because sometimes you can get something like that and it goes, holy cow, how did I get that? But it happens. And then there's this time when, like, we're driving back from Boise, and I see this cloud up there above the mountain as we're coming over Cat Creek Summit, and it's like, oh, you know what? I think we're going to get a sunset over there. And I keep driving, and it's sort of changing color, and I think, well, maybe just before Hill City there's a place where I can turn out and maybe catch that sunset. Maybe it'll be nice by then. We find the place to turn out, and oh my God, look what else is there. You know, you just get lucky. But the key thing is keeping your eyes open, being open to the possibility, and then the dogs come running at you. They were nice dogs. They were friendly. But you get, you know, it just happens. And that's the key. And the other thing that I do, and I don't know, some of you others maybe do this too. If you have a meeting that you have to get to, or you have an appointment you've got to go to, you leave 15 minutes early. Or you leave yourself an extra 15 minutes to get home, so that if you see something along the way, you can stop and not have to worry about being late. I do that. It drives Patty nuts sometimes when she's trying to get some work done or do something or whatever, but it has paid off more times than you'll ever know, and I feel comfortable to be able to stop. Oh, yeah, see that? I'll do that. Then there's these opportunities that we get that we know about, and so we can prepare for, like a comet Neowise. And this is about the 4th or 5th attempt I took at it, and it takes sometimes 4 or 5 attempts to finally get it into a setting that you might like, or you personally might like. In my case, some of the earlier ones I got, you know, they were interesting, but I sort of liked this one because it really brought it to earth, where it was up against something that I could really see it. I could see that tail, that blue tail that shot straight up in the air. And this became my favorite one, and one that I loved. And it just, you know, don't give up when you get the first one or the second one. Keep trying until you find one that you really like, if you have those opportunities. That's, to me, is something that I've found that keeps me going, is keep trying. Do that click. There we go. And then there's events that you know are going to happen. Here's another one. This was a 9/11 memorial service in Ketchum a number of years ago. And I knew it was going to happen. And it was one of those that made sense, again, in black and white. And got there a little early, kind of saw how they were sort of rehearsing a little bit for it, found a place to sit quietly, and just got the solemnness of it. And if you find those kinds of situations, it can work out, but it takes a little thinking ahead sometimes. And again, this is where I say I'm a generalist. I don't just do scenes out in the middle of whatever. I mentioned earlier that, you know, a lot of rules of photography say, don't shoot in the middle of the day because it's so bright out. Well, you can. You know, if you find the right thing, you know, black against white, but that's a color photo. You know, and this was out Greenhorn Gulch. You know, about a year or so after the fire. And there's just little things, something I like. Just makes you kind of think a little bit. It was kind of fun. I enjoyed it. And then there's things that, there's another rule that I tend to break. They always say, always shoot an odd number of things, 3s, 5s, 7s, whatever. I shot 13. I figure, yeah, well, what the heck, you know. Sometimes you just have to do these hilarious things. This was over in Almo, waiting to go out to the City of Rocks one morning. Got to have a little humor in life. We're very, what did I do? Did I turn that off? There it is. Mariposa lily. Yeah, you're looking at me. Mariposa lily. Everybody calls it sago lily. But technically it's a Mariposa lily. Sago lilies are in Utah. Yeah. I called it sago lily for, what did we call it? For 30 years we called it sago lily. We call it sago lily. But the other thing is, get down low. Get up close. Use a cheap tripod for something like this. You can buy a tripod for $25, $30 that will do something like this. You know, and just get down low. It's amazing what you can do. You know, and get a nice focus. It just really is. And God, we have so many beautiful flowers around here. I can't wait for them to start popping out before too long. And they're going to happen fast this year. They're going to happen really fast. Figure out how best to get the focus and get some of those details in there. That's really the key. I don't have to tell some of you guys. Ed. This is one of those 15, oops, I forgot. Come on. This is one of those leave 15-minute early shots. I was on my way to Twin Falls for an appointment this winter. It was just south of Bellevue. I saw this bull standing there, and I thought, there's something underneath it. I slowed down, and traffic was kind of bad, so I flipped around, and I found a driveway facing back, and the big 7-point that was standing up looked at me, but the one that was on the ground, he's a 6-point, he wasn't looking, so I thought, in order to get this picture just right, maybe if I got out of the car, he'd look at me. Sure enough, I got out of the car, and I had both of them look at me, got the picture, said thank you very much, and off to my appointment. I lucked out because the light was just right. It was a foggy morning. It's colder than heck. Those are the fun things you can get. You know, just keeping the eye out, the corner of your eye. What is that over there? Ooh, yeah. Amazing things that we see around here. Just amazing things. Ed will know all about Ed. Does everybody know Ed Kennedy sitting over here? Ed is one incredible photographer. He's a friend of mine. Worked for the Forest Service forever. Don't say that. Forest Circus. Anyway, he's a great photographer. But I knew Ed back in the days of the Castle Rock fire. I don't have your picture in this one of you. But I had a little bit of access to some things. And usually you try to take a picture with light on people. Sometimes it's good to have light that's not on people. You know, you go against this. Don't follow the rules all the time. You know, these guys have been working their butts off, building fire line, protecting Ketchum. So again, sometimes you can just break the rules. There are no rules. And then sometimes you catch something that's just like, what the heck? This is Warm Springs. This is at the mouth of Warm Springs. That P-3 retardant plane with 4 engines is going up Heidelberg Hill to drop retardant. And I was so lucky to catch those 3 firefighters standing on the top of that knob. Yeah, they do. They do. So that was a total lucky shot. Yeah. But that's why you always want to have a camera with you, because you never know what's going to happen. Sometimes you get lucky too with a skier. The U.S. ski team hired me to photograph the U.S. Nationals that were here in 2016. And this young lady was on her way up before she came. Number 1 skier in the world, woman skier in the world. That's Michaela. She barely has the ski edge on the ground. She won that race. That was the GS coming down Hemingway. Yeah, got lucky on that one. Lucky you got Sun Valley in the flag. Been very fortunate photographing the symphony. Grammy Award winner, Renee Fleming. This picture in black and white hangs on the wall at the Sun Valley Lodge. The owner's wife wanted it there. She specifically asked for it. I've been very fortunate that way. I love doing it. I also was very fortunate to photograph 2 very famous women photographers, Diana Walker and Lindsay Adaro. Lindsay won the Pulitzer Prize for photography 2 years ago. Diana Walker, of course, some of you know her. She lives here. She was the White House photographer for many presidents. I just happened to catch them both together. I've been photographing Lindsay Adaro on the right there for a day or 2, and I knew Diana was walking up to her to get her book signed, and I kind of signaled to Lindsay that, hey. So I got that. And they both have the picture. They're both happy to have it. It's kind of fun to be able to sort of semi-stage something once in a while. Very fortunate to photograph this guy. Afterwards, I got to sit with him for about 15 minutes and talk. I've been very lucky. One lucky son of a gun. This was the very first photo I ever had published in a major publication. This was published in the Wall Street Journal. One of our local rangers had a reporter for the Wall Street Journal out here. He was doing a story on our local RAC, the Resource Advisory Committee, for the Forest Service, and we had given some money to the local district, the Ketchum Ranger District, to fund the flow trail out there. And he was talking to this reporter about how the funding went, and the ranger knew that I was on that committee that approved the money. And the guy, I had my camera hanging off my shoulder with a long lens because I'd been shooting some races, bike races. And the guy looked at me and said, "Are you a professional photographer? Could you photograph that trail for me?" And I said, "Oh, no, I'm just an amateur." He said, "Oh, yeah, right." And he said, "Well, the photo editor at the Wall Street Journal will call you on Tuesday." And sure enough, she did. We set it up, and I photographed this picture, and it showed up 2 weeks later in the Wall Street Journal, and that began my career. Anyway, that's how all the publications started out. It was fun. That was way back when. You can tell it's an old bike. One of the things, you see the sheep a lot, you see different things, but sometimes you just got to get low. Get down right into their faces, the dogs and the sheep, and when you're on their level, they're like, "Oh, hi, how you doing?" The dog, it's like, "Okay, hi, you're down at my level." They'll smile for you a little bit. They'll respect you. You can look at it just a little differently. And you don't see the normal picture of, 10,000 sheep coming up the road. Try something a little different. That's kind of the fun of it, too, is just trying something a little different. Same thing with fireworks. Instead of having all the stuff in the background, how about just the explosion? I have fun experimenting those kind of ways. One of the things I like to do, just mess around, try things just like that, just something a little different. I like fast cars too. Anybody can do this. You can do it. Just go up on Phantom Hill, stand, where you take off to go to Boulder City. Just take your camera up there, stand on the side of the road, wait for a car to come by at 65 miles an hour. Set your camera, just try some settings, okay? And pan. A car going 65 miles an hour, and you can make it look like that. Anybody can do it. If you want to just try it out. And then when they have the car rally, figure out a way to finagle yourself. I can say this now because I don't know somebody. Finagle your way up there, and then when one goes by, at 200 miles an hour, try it. You can do it. It's amazing. This is a McLaren that I think he ran 221 miles an hour eventually. Yeah, fun things you can do. Okay. Sometimes just step out on your front porch and go, "Oh, shoot. Go get your camera, quick." Put the long lens on it. I live 5 miles away from the top of Baldy. Grabbed my camera, took this picture. There's the top of the Mayday lift and the lookout on top of Baldy. Boom, there it is. So, and you see an opportunity, grab it. That's really the key. Grab those opportunities the second you see them, as quick as you can. Keep a camera handy. I have one by me all the time. Drives Patty nuts sometimes. But she lives with it. She's lived with it for 43 years. We're getting ready to be in flood season. Has anybody ever seen the water run out of Magic Reservoir like this? Gary has. Yeah, this is what it looked like in 2017. You take that road, you drive down south, you're going towards Twin, and just before you cross the the water coming out in the canal. There's that turnoff that takes you all the way back on that dirt road. This is what you can see. This is the water from the floods of 2017 when it was pouring out of. It's amazing the things you can find just kind of poking around. Absolutely amazing. And shooting water is fun too, because you get this soft flowing water. It is absolutely fun. Shoshone Falls. This was the same year. Shoshone Falls was just going absolutely bizarre. You can't see how deep it is because of this. So much water was coming down. It was making so much fog and steam and whatever. Yeah. There's going to be one next. Yes, and I think there's going to be another one next week, I believe, or this weekend or next week. They have a light show on Sundays and I think there's going to be another one either this Sunday or the following Sunday. You'll have to check in the newspaper. Yeah. Yep. We'll get to all the comments and questions at the end. So, speaking of Twin Falls, Patty and I were driving north from a trip down south and started to see this sunset happening as we were driving through Twin Falls and go, oh, dang it. Got to the Perrine Bridge and go, oh my God, look at that, look at that. Immediately pulled off at the end of the bridge on this side of the river, and that little turnout, pulled out my camera, did a quick pano, jumped back in the car, processed this when I got home, and that's what we got. It's just absolutely amazing when it happens just like that, you know. Again, one of those things, when you see it, you gotta grab it. And by the time we got to not even to Jerome intersection, it was gone. It happened that fast. This is another one from last fall on one of my trips to Boise. I'd just gone through. It was a little foggy early in the morning, and I went through the Timmerman intersection, turned off, and was headed towards Boise. I saw that fog out there, and I go, oh my, this could be interesting. Pulled off on the side of the road, because there was no really place to park where I wanted to get this picture, put the flashers on, got the picture. You can see, I think there's a red light here, right over there. There's Heinemann, Cobb, and Old Heinemann in the picture. Personally, this is one of my favorites. Things that you see in this valley are just absolutely amazing. We are so lucky to be here in this valley. I was out looking for birds one day, and I stopped just south of Gannett, and I saw this hawk sitting up, red-tailed hawk sitting up on a telephone pole. This one was probably, 35, 40 feet away from me. And he looked at me, and I looked at him, and got my camera all ready. Let me just, so I got my camera ready, and I quietly opened the door to the car and rolled my camera up, got it ready, got the focus ready. Fortunately, I have a tracking thing on my focus. Got it up there. He looked at me once, took off, click, click, click. Got about 3 pictures, and this is the middle one. Those birds are just absolutely amazing. I'm glad he waited for me to get out of the car. Yeah. Very lucky on that one. I'll take you back to Twin Falls again. I wasn't shooting the bridge. I was shooting the basalt. I was having a discussion with someone about the basalt layers that are above the river and what was going on with the basalt. And I'd shot this basalt and hadn't really thought much about it. And then I showed this picture to some friends, and they said, "That's an interesting approach to the bridge. Look at it." And I go, "Well, I guess it is." So sometimes there are things in pictures that that maybe to you don't really mean much or you don't think about, but they do to somebody else. And that's also kind of the fun thing about photography, that you don't necessarily see something in it, but somebody else does. And that's what makes it fun, too. I love shooting signs. I have probably 1,000 signs, neon signs, plain old signs, whatever they are. I have a ton of them on my website. And if you ever want to go to my website, you can skip all the other stuff. Just go and look at my signs. They're really fun. There's a few that are a little risque, but most of them are just fun. They're old. What I want to do is try to preserve as many neon ones as I can, even some where the neon's gone. This one from the Hard Rock Hotel in Vegas is no longer there because the Hard Rock Hotel is gone. It's now it's one of Branson's Virgin hotels. The sign's gone. It's about 100 feet long. And all those different neon colors rotate and they light up, and the strings on the guitar do like they're being played and all that. It's just great. And there's about 2 seconds when all of them are just still. And I just happened to catch it. It took me about half an hour to finally get the one photo, which is this one, where they're all still. There's one light that was burned out right here, unfortunately. But otherwise, everything was just right. Anyway, that's one of the things. And I put this in here because one of the cool things about photography, too, is having a special project, personal project. I consider signs a personal project. Whenever I see one, I stop and I get it. And I collect those. That's my personal project. And it's just a fun thing to do. When I travel, I go out at night and I try to get wherever I happen to be. You know, if it's in Pittsburgh or if it's in Knoxville or it's in wherever, I try to get the signs, as many as I can. That's just my project. It's a fun thing to do. It makes photography fun. And it's one of the reasons I love photography. The other thing is planning, too. Like, this is back at City of Rocks. We knew that the sun was going to come up at a particular point in time, and I knew I wanted to get this old stagecoach somehow in this picture. So I kind of timed it and just made sure I was there for it at that particular point in time. And that's the only reason I have this one in there, just to say, you know, if you plan for something and you kind of know when things are going to happen, with apps, you can kind of figure out when things are going to happen and be there at the right time. That's all. This, again, is another one for planning. I knew there was going to be a full moon, and I knew that full moon was probably going to set behind Baldy. And I had a hunch that it was going to be somewhere over the bowls, but I wasn't quite sure. And so I used a couple of different apps to figure out exactly where it would set if I could get the lookout in that picture. And so I used a couple of different apps, and I finally figured out the exact time and the exact place. And if I got into Cold Springs above the hospital, just at about the gate where the Sun Valley Company closes the gate, I could get this picture. And I was only off by where the app had told me and where I actually shot it by about 50 feet. And I got it. Sometimes those are kind of fun things to do too, because it's sort of a mind thing, and it kind of keeps your brain alert. And you sort of forget whether you're in City of Rocks or what's that other place? Oh yeah, Craters. Thank you. Thanks, Leila. Love you. The other thing is, you see an event coming, or you know that something's going to happen. You know that Union Pacific is going to have their steam engine 844 in Shoshone. And you know that there's going to be a ton of people. But if you think about it, maybe I can get a picture of it with just 2 people in it. When it rolls into Shoshone and you get the picture of the thing, and you're nowhere near where the 1,000 other people are standing. And it works out. It's just kind of fun. You sort of figure out certain things. I love doing something like that, just for something different to do. Bella. Shooting into the light. Again, it's breaking the rules. Sometimes it's just fun to do it. Just shoot right into the sun. Why not? You can get all kinds of fun pictures. Take me back to City of Rocks again. Sometimes you get lucky. You just go out and, oh my God, look at that. The light just happened to hit those rocks just at the right time. What can you say? This next one, got a little story behind it. When you're going to travel somewhere and you know that you maybe want to go see something that's interesting, do a little research, obviously. My father was a scientist, and in the late 60s and early 70s, he traveled to Oak Ridge, Tennessee a few times. Never talked about it. He was a scientist with the government, in a laboratory in Montana, biochemist. And then he died, but we never knew what the heck he did. And Patty had a trip to Knoxville, Tennessee, and I knew that Oak Ridge was fairly close. I said, I'd love to go out to Oak Ridge, Tennessee and see what's going on. They have tours there. So I Googled it, and I found out that there's this guy named Ed Westcott who'd taken pictures. He was the official photographer for the Manhattan Project, and he was the only photographer from when it started in 1945 all the way till 1977. And I looked at a bunch of his pictures online, and I did a little research, and I knew my father's background, and I knew this one building that I wanted to see, and Ed Westcott had a picture of this building, and I thought, is that on the tour route? It is. So anyway, I got all excited, and a friend loaned me a car, and I drove over to Oak Ridge, Tennessee from Knoxville, and I walk into the visitor center to get my ticket for the tour bus, and who is standing in the building but Ed Westcott himself with his son. He'd retired in 1977. This was in 2017 that I was there. 16, something like that. And I just about dropped my pants. It's like, holy, that's Ed Westcott. So I went over and introduced myself, and he was the nicest guy. He'd suffered from a stroke in about 2003, but he could still talk pretty well. And so we talked. And he took me around and he showed me his photos. And I asked him a few questions about this one building, and he told me a little bit about it. He's not under any secrecy agreement. And they're in this museum, in the visitor center, they had this thing about him. And I said, Ed, can I take your picture? So I took this picture of Ed. He died 2 years ago. But I was so fortunate to get this. He shot Nikon cameras. I shoot Nikon cameras, so we had a little something in common. Sometimes research pays off. Sometimes you get damn lucky. I got lucky. I learned a few things. Research. Sometimes you want to get a photograph of an eclipse, and this took probably a couple of months of research and planning and trying to find the right location. This is the one that we had here. We had probably 3 or 4 different locations that we could have shot it depending on the weather, because we didn't know. And up until the night before, could have gone to 3 different places depending on the weather. Here, somewhere over by Jackson, somewhere out in Wyoming, one place over by Bora. Ended up shooting it right over at Murphy's Bridge. And because that was the spot I really wanted. I wanted a little bit in the foreground. Got really lucky on that. But it took a long time getting ready and preparation. But part of that was the fun, was the fact that I was able to get the picture. And that was a big project, but I loved it. And, you know, I had help. Patty helped me. We shot with 6 different cameras. Yeah. And we just had one heck of a good time. It was a long day, but it worked out. This is, I love doing star pictures, as you've seen. This is a star trail from right up above Phantom Hill, just a little ways up the road. Oh, geez, I'm sorry. So this is a star trail just up above Phantom Hill. When you go up the road toward Boulder City, probably just not even a quarter mile. And it's an hour long, maybe an hour and a half long photo that I took one spring. And as I'm shooting it, it was just a normal dark night. Didn't really think much about it until I got home and processed it. And I looked at it and I'm going, what is all that purple? Something screwed up. Then I went to the Aurora page and I looked at the Aurora page. Because when I was shooting it, I didn't see any purple. The whole time I was out there, I saw no purple. But when your camera is open for that long, there was an aurora that night. But it was farther north, up towards Montana. But the camera picked up the purple from that aurora in this picture. And that is aurora in there. Got lucky. I didn't even know it. And this is another one of my favorite photos. Anyway. So again, you get lucky, you see something, you think, oh God, I must have screwed up. I got the color wrong, something's not right. Check yourself just in case. Think, it's like, I had to really think about that one. I've shot the Boulder Mountain Tour for about the last 12, 15 years. Most recently, I've been shooting the finish. And one of the things that some of the winners, when they see the camera with the big lens aimed at them at the finish, they, and I'm the only one that's sitting right down there, and that's all they can see. They'll do things, you know, like, yeah. So you get some fun shots. This one actually ended up being in a couple of advertisements. I got a little excited there. I knocked the microphone down. A little higher. There we go. So, you know, sometimes things happen that you don't expect. And sometimes when you make good friends with musicians who you've shot for 10 years and they trust you, they ask you to come on stage with them and shoot special events. This is Time for Three. These guys have played at the Symphony for 10 years, 10 plus years, and they are just fabulous. They won 2 Grammys this year. They're now Grammy winners. They're the greatest guys. They are full of energy, and to be on stage with them photographing is a kick in the pants, and it just gives you that energy. It's just absolutely amazing. It's just fun to share some of that type of energy. And this was one of those. So now, I'm going to wrap it up. Share your love for photography. Protect your photos. I know some of you do. Back them up. That's really important. Save them onto a flash drive. Save them onto just a small SSD drive. Whatever it is, put them in a safe place. Take another copy of it and give it to a friend and have the friend keep it at their house. It's really important to protect your photos. I can't say that enough. Absolutely critical. And volunteer your photography skills. I've been doing that for years, and I love doing it, because it gives you the majority of these photos that you see with people around is just from volunteering. And it is such a fun thing, and it opens up all these doors. The fact that you get to see these people and get to be around incredible people and see incredible events. And there's so many nonprofits around this valley that can use help, and it can save them a lot of money by just volunteering to help them out. And even some of the governmental agencies. I've helped out some governmental agencies doing some of their photos. When you see some of these websites from some of them, you'll see some of my photos on some of them. So anyway, back them up. Share them, print them too. Print your photos. That's really important. I'm hitting the wrong button. Share, back them up, share them. I don't think I'd share them on that middle one. I should take that out of there. Email them to your friends. I've got a friend right there who emails pictures all the time, and I love it. I try to email them back to him. Thanks, Steve. Hang your photos up. Print them. Hang them up. Put them in places. Loan them to places so that people can see them. That's really important. Yeah, volunteer. It'll get you into places. It will, it'll help people out. It'll save them a bunch of money. And just in general, there's going to be another eclipse, total eclipse, in April of next year. It's going to go across Mexico and up through the central states and then up into the eastern states. It's going to be one of these. You're going to get an opportunity to take a picture like this. This was the one I really lucked out on. You have a chance to do this. And there's time to think about it, practice it, prepare for it, find a place somewhere. I don't know where we're going to be. We haven't chosen yet, but we're going to be there. Texas? Yeah, Texas would be a good place. There you go, Ed. There's places all around just to have fun. You all have seen that. Just stop and take a picture of it. And then there's things that, some people might go, huh? I like it. Take pictures that you like. Someone else might not care a hoot about it, but you might just like it. Oops, I went one too many. That's over by Lewiston. It's an old building. I thought, that just might look interesting in black and white with just a little color in there. Yeah. Just because. Who knows? Somebody might like it. And our Boulder Mountains are so beautiful. They're so beautiful. There's color all the time. I mean, they're great in black and white too, but in color, at sunrise, at sunset, midday, it's always there. And there's always some bird out there willing to talk back to you when you take your picture. This bird, this guy talked right back to me. Anyway, thank you.
So we'd be happy to take questions. And just because we're recording the video, we'd like you to use the microphone. Nils can certainly hear you here. The people live streaming and the people on the video will not be able to hear your questions unless you speak into the microphone. So, Ed, I saw your hand up.
And I'm going to start by arguing with you, Nils.
Okay, Ed.
You kept talking about luck. The photos you took of the eclipse, planning, you make your own luck. Luck favors the prepared. You're there, and it happens. So I guess there's a certain element of luck in it, but mainly you're there, and that's you're prepared. You're making it happen. So I hope you will quit calling it luck, and just say, I'm damn good at this.
You are. That's very kind of you to say, Ed. Yes, there is some planning and preparation, but some of it is pure luck.
Yeah, sometimes it's serendipity, and you're there at the right time. But I'll add that only you could make Twin Falls look good. So my question.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm a little bit biased. My question is, what are your thoughts on in Photoshop and maybe even in Lightroom nowadays? It's so easy to replace the sky and do crazy stuff like that. What are your thoughts on that?
Really good question. It is easy, and the most scary thing right now is artificial intelligence and the things that can happen. I am totally opposed to most of that. There are things in Lightroom that are important. I shoot in RAW. And for those of you who know cameras, you can shoot in JPEG or in RAW. In JPEG, it automatically it sharpens it, and it puts it in the color that you generally see. In RAW, when you shoot in RAW, which is what most of us do when we need high-resolution pictures, it strips a lot of that out in what you actually see when you first load it. You have to then go back in and bring the sharpening in, bring the colors back in, and a few of the shadows and highlights and things like that. I do some of those corrections just to bring it back to what I saw. I generally stop there. And if I didn't get it right, it's gone. That's one of the reasons, and I probably should have mentioned this, I take several shots of what I see, so that if I see like that bird at the end, I probably took 4 or 5 pictures of that, and I'll go through all 4 or 5 of them and pick out the one that I think is the sharpest, or that has the best clarity, or the best color, or whatever it is I'm looking for in that. And then I'll work on that one. And then in Lightroom, there's one button that I use that I really kind of like. It's called Auto. I just click Auto, and it brings back what it should have. And then maybe I'll do a little bit of cropping just to get rid of something on the edge that I don't need, or something like that. I try to do the most minimal amount possible, because last thing I want to do is spend all my time sitting behind the screen.
Any questions, other questions on this side? Okay.
A couple over there.
I enjoyed this very much. Thank you. I go back to the days when we used to have Photoshops, all over, and we had rolls in our camera that we developed, and I guess our days have gone by. I used to go to the camera shop up at Sun Valley and find out what f-stop to set on my camera and I had a light meter. And I guess all those days are gone because everybody's using something new. So since all these camera shops are gone, I have a phone, and I don't know, where do I develop all those? I have to go into what? Where do I go to get these pictures? You tell me.
You're asking where to get them printed?
Yeah, there's nobody locally here to do it.
Actually, there are a couple places locally. F-Stop is still there.
It is?
Well, not F-Stop. Jamie, who was at F-Stop, has her own shop in Ketchum.
Where is it?
She is in the building across from the visitor center on the, what's that, Leadville? Oh, is she down on Warm Springs Road now? Okay. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, across from where the old lumber yard used to be on Warm Springs Road. That's right.
Oh, going down the road there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next to bird framing, yeah.
Okay, so
Sorry.
Does anybody use film anymore?
Some people do, yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm kind of the dark ages, I think. No advancement.
Why is your preference Nikon camera?
Good question, Mark. The question was, why is my preference Nikon cameras? I started out with a Brownie camera when I was a kid. It had an Instamatic, had an Olympus. Then I was in the corporate world for a while and didn't do anything. Then all of a sudden the digital cameras came along, and I got one of the first Sony cameras. And I got not this one, but I got this Sony camera, digital, and I'd go to take a picture, and I'd push down the shutter button and go, click, click, and I go, what? this is ridiculous. And I kind of gave up on digital for a number of years. And I sort of said, well, this digital stuff is ridiculous. And I was with Patty over in, she was at a convention in Nampa, Idaho. What year was that, Patty? 2007. And she was in some meetings, and I went over to a Costco in Nampa, and they had this display for Nikon, for the digital camera, and I looked at it, and I said, oh, man, I don't know. And I held the camera, and I liked the feel of it. It felt good in my hand. And they had a Canon camera, and I picked it up, and I felt it in my hand, and it just didn't feel right. So I went back to the Nikon. It felt good. So I bought the Nikon. And ever since I've just stayed with Nikon, and that's why. It's still, even to this day, my Nikon camera is so comfortable in my hand. I'm left-handed, so I shoot with my right. But I can do whatever, and I feel so comfortable with it. And that's why I've stayed with it. Yeah, they are. They're all good. I mean,
So we can tell from this distance that you have larger biceps using a Nikon camera than Jack Williams ever would. My other question is, do you ever use, in any of those photos, AEB bracketing?
once in a while I will bracket something if the light is really odd. I was down in Moab 2.5 weeks ago, and I was photographing some petroglyphs. And at the time I was at some of them, the way the sun was on them and the lighting and look, it was really odd, and I knew I wouldn't be getting back to them at any particular time. I bracketed them, and I would shoot either 3 brackets or 5 brackets, depending upon how bad or good the light was. So that's about all. Other than that, I just generally just shoot one single shot.
Any other questions on this side of the room?
Yeah, Ed had a really good point. Yeah, we have in our camera, we can see a histogram, and a histogram is a graph of how the light is. And when you see that in your camera, when you're actually looking through it, like I'm looking through it right now, and all I see is light way over on the left side, which means it's very dark. What we want to do is move that histogram to the center so that the light is nicely balanced out. Like I move over here, and okay, it's way over there because I got a lot of light. So we can work on that, and then we can make some adjustments accordingly with our shutter speed, with our ISO, things like that. And it's really nice. So we can do it right as we're looking at what we're shooting. Beauty of the camera these days. Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation here. I'm going to ditto Mr. Kennedy over here and tell you that those night shots are phenomenal. Those eclipse shots, some of those star shots are fabulous. Some of the best stuff I've ever seen in my limited years. My question is, I gave up on cameras quite a while ago, semi-familiar with photography. I now just carry an iPhone. And the issue I have with my iPhone is in the composition. 80% of the time, I can't see, in plain English, the damn screen. Can anybody in this room tell me, when I'm in daylight, how I can really take that phone and compose the shot? I can't see the screen. Well, that helps. I
That-
try putting these things on.
I've had that same problem, and sometimes what I'll do is I'll take it, I'll think I'll get the picture I want, I'll take it, then I'll look at it and say, oh, okay, I see what I did wrong, and then take another one and try to make an adjustment based on what I saw in the first one. But yeah, otherwise it's so hard to do.
It's almost impossible. And when
Yeah.
time is of the essence.
Yeah, oh yeah, if it's something coming and going fast, yeah.
You can also, if you know you're going to be wanting to shoot with your phone, you can use a hoodman. Hoodman, become a hoodman, make a hoodman.
Yeah.
Use it to look at the back of the monitor on the back of the camera, but it also works on your iPhone screen, and it closes around your screen. It's like the old movie screen.
Yeah.
So,
The other thing
so
that I would say,
Ed just gave a good description of something which we did not capture. Could you summarize it just a little bit
Yeah.
for our video audience?
for the video audience, is a hoodman, which is a little hood that goes over the screen that you can look in through. It's kind of like a lens that you have over your eyepiece on your camera, but it's larger for that. The other thing too that I try to do when I'm trying to get something serious, I make sure that I'm shooting in RAW on my camera and not on just the normal live. Huh? Yeah, oh yeah. I have a 12 and I can shoot in RAW, and that gives me then options to do a little more editing if necessary. Yeah.
A lot of your photos show a degree of spontaneity with people in them. How do you deal with model releases in the situations like that?
I don't deal with model releases at all. That's the easiest way. All of these are all approved and signed off on by the people afterwards.
But doesn't it create a
Approved.
problem if you sell one that's got an identifiable person in it and you don't have the model release?
I don't sell these. Oh, the ones in magazines, the ones that are in magazines with a person, those are all approved, yeah, and released. But the ones that have musicians in, all those musicians have all signed releases prior to any photo being taken. Good question.
Jennifer Montgomery, and I'm sorry I was late, weather and everything, but so many things. I do photography. I've never had a lesson in my life. I know some good photographers, though. No, but so many of the things you said are key to the whole thing, and that's put your goddamn cell phone down and keep your camera with you. That's why people miss a lot of things. B, shoot what you like. Things like this are elementary but very important to photography that really pleases people. And being impulsive. Last summer, I was taking a shower, got out of the bathroom, walked into my bedroom, started thinking, and I see a double rainbow over the mountain. Boom! I get a camera, go outside, shoot the picture. But I would love to have the opportunity, for example, I learn things, and some of my works exhibits, etc. I'm not a genius like you. I would love to have the opportunity to have you do some classes, etc., where people can further perfect and advance. And I thank you very much.
Thank you. That's very kind of you to say. I'm not a very good teacher. I'm getting older and crankier and trying to do less and less these days and spending more time outside. I've been giving up more and more of my commitments to do things. But it is fun to share what I know, and doing something like this is fun. I really enjoy it, and just sharing some things, because it gives me an opportunity to, like tonight, I had a chance to chat with a bunch of people, and I really enjoy that because I get ideas, and like some of the questions that came in tonight were really helpful. So I really appreciate it, and I appreciate all of you. And I appreciate all of you being here. It really lifts my spirits, and especially after a couple of years of tough times. It's really nice. It's really nice to be back out here. So thank you.
Thank you.